On May 1st, 2004, Hungary, alongside other Central European countries, joined the European Union. To talk about this, I am joined by Márton Gyöngyösi, who is a member of the European Parliament, but also who heads Jobbik, a party which is in opposition here in Hungary. Hello.
Hello, nice to meet you.
So, do you see a reason to celebrate?
Absolutely. I think 20 years in the European Union is a good time to reflect on the 2 decades of EU membership and to say praise that we are members, and also I think it is very, very important in today's Hungary to make an assessment and to come to a conclusion how important it is after 50 years of communism and after a disastrous 20th century to be member of a peace project which is there to bring development to the country in every sense, which of course also means that we have to articulate our interests to represent them within the European Union by ourselves or through alliances. But I think it is a very, very important time of reflection, 1st of May 2024.
And regarding reflection, do you like the direction that your country is heading to? Because Hungary famously is ruled by conservatives. You yourself are also a conservative. So do you think the Hungarian approach to European Union and also the direction in which the country is heading is a correct one?
No, it's a terrible one. I think what my government is doing at the moment is disastrous for the future prospects of my country. I think it is undermining a very, very important alliance, a Western alliance, not only the EU, but let's talk also about the NATO. I know it's mainly the EU that we are here to talk about, but what I see in Hungary today is an anti-Western rhetoric, and the government is in a declared fashion undermining the European and the Western alliances that we are members of, echoing Russian propaganda and playing clearly to Vladimir Putin, to Xi Jinping, and seeking an alliance outside of the Western alliance, and basically gambling on a change which I don't think is in the interest of my country and of Hungary. You mentioned that this government is conservative. It certainly calls itself conservative and wants to monopolize Christian conservative politics, but I think there is nothing conservative, nothing right-wing, and most certainly nothing Christian about what this government is doing. Even if they put the label on it, this is illiberalism. And I think it already says a lot, and this is what Viktor Orbán called his regime. It's an illiberal regime. It doesn't stand for something, it stands against something. And when something is about being against something, I think that's a time when we should become suspicious that this is more about something destructive and not something constructive for the future of the people and the future of the country.
Mm-hmm. And from where comes this approach of Hungary towards Ukraine and Russia? Because often in Poland, many people are invested in helping Ukraine and so on. We often say, oh, people in the West are slightly further away from the front lines, from Russia, so therefore it's of less importance to them. But Hungary borders Ukraine. Do you think that Viktor Orbán wants this country to border Russia someday, or where does it come from?
No idea. We have not only borders with Ukraine, but we have historically a minority living in Zakarpattia, in western oblast of Ukraine. 150,000 it used to be before the war. I have no idea where it is now, but it's a very important historic minority, ethnic minority there. Many of them fighting under the Ukrainian flag against the aggressor, against Russia. And I think that a conservative right-wing government should stand on the side of the victim, should stand on the side of the Hungarians who are also trying to protect their homeland from Russian aggression. And what really puzzles me, that the nation of 1956, which, I mean, I think there's one thing that everyone knows about Hungary. Anywhere you go in the world, if you say 1956, just a date, everyone knows what you're talking about. That stands for Hungarian heroism against Russian occupation, without any help, without any protection from any side or from any help from anywhere, and a very heroic and hopeless battle against an overwhelming Russian occupation. The parallel is so clear with 1956. What is happening in Ukraine today is analogous to what has happened in 1956. That's why I'm wearing the symbol of 1956 since the Russian occupation of Ukraine, because I think that the parallel is given for every Hungarian. How it is possible that a right-wing conservative prime minister, could echo Russian propaganda, say that this has nothing to do with us. This is a war between two Slavic nations. Hungary has nothing to do with it. And it's the Ukrainians who started the war, or at least they share 50% of the blame for the conflict. And Hungary should stay out of this war and not help Ukraine in its battle for its sovereignty and for its independence. I'm ashamed that we have a prime minister like this, Viktor Orbán. And not only ashamed, but I also think that he's acting against the Hungarian interests, and he is a Trojan horse of the Kremlin. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the intentions of Russia are 100% clear. On 3 months before the breakout of the war, in 2021, 17th of December, Russia has made public the draft agreement that it has sent off to the White House and has sent off to the NATO headquarters, in which it is putting forward the new Russian world order, or the new Russian doctrine, which resembles for me the Brezhnev doctrine, where it is talking about the Russian sphere of influence, and it is talking about the post-Soviet and the post-socialist countries as making up the Russian sphere of influence and the Russian sphere of interest. And it is demanding that in these countries the EU and the NATO retreats. Russia is basically saying that Ukraine, but also Hungary, Slovakia, Poland, countries which have already joined the EU and NATO and hence are in an alliance with the West, should give back their membership because they belong to the Russian sphere of influence. Now, the fact that Russia has stated that, it means that Ukraine is not only the victim of Russian aggression, but so are we, all the countries which have joined 20 years ago EU and NATO before. We are also on the target list of Russian aggression.
But there is a hope on the opposition here in Hungary. It's Péter Magyar, a person which has emerged very recently, has now garnered much of support from the opposition. I wonder, what do you think personally about Péter Magyar, and whether you envision perhaps in the future cooperating with him?
Look, I don't know. The whole phenomenon is very new. I don't know how much the Polish viewers know of the situation, but he's the ex-husband of Judit Varga, who was probably the most prominent minister within the Orbán government. She was the one who helped, as minister, solidify the two-thirds majority and on many occasions act unconstitutionally. I mean, the Pegasus software, which was used to tap conversations of politicians, lawyers, people of...
We know that very well in Poland.
You know that very well, but here in Hungary, the Minister of Justice was, a prominent figure, and Péter Magyar is the ex-husband, and was the ex-husband until very recently. The change was so sudden that I'm still a bit suspicious as to how strong the credibility, how much we can believe Péter Magyar. Because for one reason or another, for 14 years, he was very closely tied with the top notch of the regime, or the top brass of the Fidesz regime. And this is a regime where there is it's not like it was in Poland, under a coalition government. And, in Poland, you still had a kind of functioning system which allowed for a change of the government. Here in Hungary, it's a one-party state, and it is much more coercive than the PiS rule in Poland ever was, or ever pretended to be. Here in Hungary, there is 100% and full control over the system. Now, this man was sitting at the center of this for 14 years. I don't know where he was when the media law was adopted, when the new electoral law was adopted, when corruption skyrocketed and Hungary became one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Where was this man when so many things happened in this country which are completely unacceptable and normal Hungarians are standing puzzled in front of? Now, when he was asked last week in an interview about what he thinks about the EU, he says, well, I agree with what Fidesz says 100%. It is much closer to me, Fidesz's narrative on the EU, than what the opposition says. He says, I don't like all this talk about rule of law. I don't think there's a problem with rule of law in Hungary. Really? I mean, come on. Then you don't really have a problem with the system. Your problem is perhaps that you have a personal grudge with some people within the system, but you don't really have a fundamental problem with a dictatorship which is in close ties with Vladimir Putin, with Lukashenko, and with Xi Jinping. Then, sorry, but what are you on about then? Then what are you trying to achieve then in this country? Because for me, I have a fundamental problem with the Fidesz government, not only Viktor Orbán. Of course, he's the head of the mafia, but I have a problem with the whole system that he has created. So I have big questions about Péter Magyar's credibility and his real intentions, but sometimes in life you need people like this to sweep away the regime. If he can do that, I will be happy. I wish him good luck, and he even has my support. I have written him an open letter recently, and I have asked him to help in a different way. When he appeared on the scene, he signed some of his first letters with #Don'tBeAfraid. And I understood that he was talking to those people who are serving the regime, lawyers, prosecutors, MPs, MEPs perhaps, people running some authorities, and who swore an oath on the Bible and on the Constitution to serve the nation. And they are not doing that, but they are serving a destructive regime. His responsibility is to show an example and to speak to the living conscience of those people who swore an oath but are not serving the nation, but they are serving Viktor Orbán and the regime. He has the responsibility, I think, and the duty to lead by example. He is a person who has come from the inner circles of Fidesz, and he has shown that it is possible to exit the regime without any visible damage. He should pull out as many people from the regime as possible, because I think this regime will only collapse if a critical mass leaves the system. From outside, you will not be able to challenge the system. From within, there is a chance.
Well, thank you, sir, for your time and insight. It was Márton Gyöngyösi, member of the European Parliament and also head of Jobbik.